There was a young man named Daniel who believed that speaking more meant being stronger. He filled every silence with noise. Every pause with explanations. Every moment of uncertainty with words. If someone argued, he argued louder. If someone questioned him, he defended himself longer. If someone ignored him, he tried harder to be heard. Daniel thought this was confidence. He tried harder to be heard. But one evening changed everything. Daniel thought this was confidence. It happened in a small meeting room at his office. But one evening changed everything. A simple discussion that slowly turned into conflict. It happened in a small meeting room at his office. Voices rose. A simple discussion that slowly turned into conflict. Floated in the air like sharp knives. Voices rose. And Daniel did what he always did. Faces tightened. He spoke. Accusations floated in the air like sharp knives. And spoke again. And Daniel did what he always did. Trying to protect his image. Trying to win. Until suddenly. Spoke again. The room became quiet. Trying to prove he was right. Not peaceful quiet. Trying to protect his image. Not respectful quiet. Trying to win. But the kind of silence that feels heavy. Until suddenly. Like everyone has already made a decision about you. Daniel looked around. Quiet. No one was listening anymore. Quiet. Because sometimes, but the kind of silence that the moment you speak the most is the moment people stop hearing you. Like everyone has already made a decision about you. Daniel walked home alone. Daniel looked around. And for the first time in years, no one was listening anymore. No music. Because sometimes, no phone calls. The moment you speak the most is the moment people stop hearing you. Just silence. That night, Daniel walked home alone. A strange question appeared. For the first time in years, what if silence is not weakness, nothing but power? No music. That question followed him into sleep. No phone calls. And it refused to leave. No self-defense speeches inside his head. Spoke less. Just a few days later, Daniel noticed someone unusual at work. An older man named Victor appeared. Victor was calm. What if silence is not weakness, slow, but power? Observant. That question followed him into meetings. But when he refused to leave, everyone listened. Part 2. The man who spoke less. No emotional reactions. Daniel noticed someone unusual desperate explanations. An older man named Victor. Clear. Victor was calm. Strong. Enough. Slow. Daniel could not understand it. He rarely spoke in meetings. Be so powerful. But when he did, one afternoon, Daniel finally asked him. Everyone listened. Why don't you talk more? No long speeches. Don't you feel ignored? No emotional reactions. Victor smiled gently. No desperate replied with a sentence Daniel would never forget. Just a few simple words. Silence is only painful for people who are afraid of meeting themselves. Strong. Daniel felt something shift inside. Daniel could not understand it. Most people speak to control others. Be so powerful. Few people stay silent to understand life. Daniel finally asked him. And the day you learn the difference, why don't you talk more? Your voice will finally have meaning. Don't you feel ignored? For the first time, Daniel realized something painful. Gently. He had been speaking his whole life, with a sentence Daniel would never forget. But he had never truly communicated. Silence is only painful for people who are afraid of meeting themselves. Daniel began experimenting with silence. Daniel felt something shift inside. At first, it was uncomfortable. Victor continued. Because when the mouth becomes quiet, most people speak to control others. The mind becomes loud. Few people stay silent to understand life. Regrets. And the day you learn the difference. Embarrassing moments he tried to forget. Your voice will finally have meaning. Silence felt like standing in front of a mirror. Daniel realized that something painful. Many people run away at this stage. His whole life. They open social media. He had never truly communicated. They start conversations. Part 3. They create noise inside the mind. Not because they enjoy noise. Daniel began experimenting with silence. But because they fear silence. At first, Daniel almost it was uncomfortable. But Victor told him something important. When the mouth becomes quiet, stay in the silence long enough. The mind becomes loud. And chaos will turn into clarity. Appeared. So Daniel stayed. Minutes became hours. Embarrassing moments he tried to forget. And slowly. Silence felt like standing in front of a mirror. Thoughts became clearer. That showed everything. Emotions became calmer. Many people run away at this stage. Reactions became slower. They opened social media. For the first time in his life. Daniel was not controlled by every feeling. They create noise. He was observing them. Not because they enjoy noise. True power begins. But because they fear when silence changes everything. Daniel almost quit too. Something surprising started happening. Something important. People treated Daniel differently. Stay in the silence long enough. Not because he spoke more. And chaos will turn into clarity. Because he spoke less. So Daniel
When arguments
stayed.
appeared, he stayed calm.
Minutes became hours.
When criticism came, he listened
Hours
first.
became days.
When emotions rose,
And slowly.
he paused.
And
the
in
noise
that
inside
pause,
his mind began to soften.
he chose wisdom instead of reaction. Thoughts became clearer. One day, a heated discussion
Emotions
started again in the
calmer.
office.
The same kind that
Reactions
once
became
destroyed his
slower.
confidence. For the
Everyone
first time
expected
in his
Daniel
life to defend himself loudly.
Daniel was not
he
controlled by
didn't.
every feeling. He listened. He was observing
He
them.
breathed.
And
He
that
waited.
is where true power begins.
And when the
room finally became quiet.
Part 4,
When
he
silence
spoke only
changes
one
everything.
clear sentence.
Weeks
Calm.
passed.
Respectful.
Something surprising
Precise.
started happening. No anger. People treated Daniel
No drama.
differently. No extra
Not
words.
because
he spoke more. And something incredible
But
happened.
because
he spoke less.
The entire room agreed.
When arguments appeared,
Because few
he
words
stayed
spoken
calm.
with clarity.
When
Stronger
criticism
than
came,
thousands
he
spoken
listened
with emotion.
first. That
When
day,
emotions
Daniel
rose,
understood.
he paused.
Silence is not
And
in
empty.
that pause. Silence is preparation.
He chose
wisdom instead of
Part
reaction.
5, Mastering the Power of Silence.
One day, a heated discussion
Years later,
started
Daniel
again
became
in
the same
office.
kind of man Victor once was. The same kind that once
Calm in
destroyed his
chaos.
confidence.
Slow in anger.
Everyone expected
Careful
Daniel
with
to
words.
defend himself loudly.
People trusted him, but he didn't. Respected him. He
Listened when he spoke.
He breathed. Not because he forced attention.
He
waited. But because silence
And
had
when
given
the room
weight to his
finally
voice, became quiet. And this is the final
He
lesson
spoke
he now
only
shares
one
with
clear
the world.
sentence.
Silence
Calm.
teaches you to listen. Respectful. Listening teaches you to understand.
Precise. Understanding
No
teaches you
anger.
to choose the right words.
No drama. And the right words, no extra
Can
words.
change
a life. And something
Including your own.
incredible happened. So before you speak
The
again,
entire room agreed.
pause. Because
Breathe.
few words spoken with
Enter
clarity
the silence.
are
Because
stronger
inside
than
that quiet
thousands
space
spoken with emotion is a power most people
That
never
day,
discover. Daniel understood. And the moment you master it, silence is not empty.
You will never need to prove yourself
silence
loudly
is
again.
preparation. Your calm will speak
Part
for
5,
you.
Mastering the
Your
Power
presence
of Silence.
will speak for you.
Years
Your
later,
silence
Daniel became the same
will
kind
speak
of
the
man
loudest
Victor
truth of
once
all.
was. The next morning,
Calm in
Daniel
chaos.
woke up with a strange feeling.
Slow in anger.
Nothing in his room had changed.
Careful with words. The same walls. People trusted
The same
him. Clock. Respected
The same
him.
sunlight
touching the window. Listened when he spoke.
But inside him, something felt different.
Not because he forced
For
attention.
the first time, he noticed how
but
loud his
because
own
silence
thoughts were.
had given weight to his
Questions
voice. Kept moving in his mind. And this is the final
Why
lesson
do I always
he now
try to
shares
prove
with
myself?
the world. Why do I fear
Silence
being
teaches
misunderstood?
you
to listen. Why does silence
Listening
make me
teaches
uncomfortable?
you
to understand. He had never asked these questions
Understanding
before.
teaches you to choose
Because
the right
questions
words.
appear only when the noise disappears.
And the
right words. And that day can change a life. Daniel decided to try something
Including
new. your own.
He decided not
So
to fill
before
every
you
moment
speak
with
again,
words.
Pause. Breathe. Enter the silence. Because inside that quiet space is a power most people never discover. And the moment you master it, you will never need to prove yourself loudly again. Your calm will speak for you. Your presence will speak for you. Your silence will speak the loudest truth of all.
The next morning, Daniel woke up with a strange feeling. Nothing in his room had changed.
The same walls. The same clock. The same sunlight touching the window. But inside him, something felt different.
For the first time, he noticed how loud his own thoughts were.
Questions kept moving in his mind. Why do I always try to prove myself? Why do I fear being misunderstood? Why does silence make me uncomfortable? He had never asked these questions before. Because questions appear only when the noise disappears. And that day, Daniel decided to try something new. He decided not to fill every moment with words. A small experiment. At breakfast, he usually watched videos. That morning, he didn't. He just sat quietly, listening to the sound of a spoon touching the cup. Listening to birds outside the window. Listening to nothing special. But that nothing felt peaceful. It was simple.
soft, gentle. And for a few seconds, his mind stopped running. Those few seconds were small, but powerful. Because peace often enters life very quietly. The bus ride. On the way to work, Daniel noticed something surprising. Everyone around him was busy escaping silence. Some were scrolling on phones. Some were talking loudly. Some were wearing headphones to block the world. No one wanted to sit quietly with their own thoughts. Daniel realized something important. People are not afraid of silence. They are afraid of what silence reveals. This thought stayed with him the whole day. Watching Victor. At the office, Daniel began observing Victor more carefully. Victor never rushed. Never interrupted. Never tried to dominate conversations. When others argued, Victor listened. When others complained, Victor stayed calm. When others spoke emotionally, Victor waited. And strangely, his silence never felt weak. It felt stronger than noise. During a meeting, something interesting happened. Two managers began arguing loudly. Voices became sharp. Tension filled the room. Everyone tried to speak at the same time. Except Victor. He simply sat there, quiet, attentive, still. Minutes later, the arguments slowly lost energy. Because anger needs reaction to survive. Without reaction, anger becomes tired. When the room finally calmed down, Victor spoke only one short sentence. Let's focus on the solution, not the blame. That was all. No speech. No drama. No emotional defense. And suddenly, the meeting moved forward peacefully. Daniel felt amazed. How could so few words create such a big change? The question that changed everything. That evening, Daniel gathered courage and approached Victor. Can I ask you something? He said softly. Victor smiled. Of course. Daniel hesitated for a moment, then spoke honestly. How can you stay so calm? Don't you ever feel the need to react, to defend yourself, to speak more? Victor looked at him with kind, patient eyes. Then he answered slowly. Daniel. Most battles in life are won before words are spoken. Daniel didn't fully understand. Victor continued. When you control your emotions, you don't need to control the conversation. And when you understand yourself, you don't need to prove yourself. Silence filled the space between them. But this silence felt warm. Like a quiet teacher. The first real lesson. Victor then said something Daniel would remember forever. Silence is not the absence of power. Silence is power, waiting for the right moment. He pointed to Daniel's chest gently. If your mind is noisy, your words will be weak. But if your mind is calm, even a whisper can move hearts. Daniel felt those words deeply. Because for the first time, someone was not teaching him how to speak. Someone was teaching him when not to speak. A new decision. That night, Daniel made a quiet promise to himself. He would not try to become louder. He would not try to win every argument. He would not try to explain himself to everyone. Instead, he would learn the language of silence. Slowly. Patiently. Honestly. Because deep inside, he was beginning to understand. The strongest people are not those who speak the most, but those who know the value of quiet. And this was only the beginning of his transformation. A journey not of words, but of awareness. Not of noise, but of peace. And in the coming days, Daniel would discover something even more surprising. Silence doesn't only change conversations. Silence changes the person who practices it. The next few days were quiet, but not easy. Daniel had made a decision to practice silence. Yet he quickly discovered something important. Outer silence is simple. Inner silence is difficult. His mouth was quiet, but his mind was still loud. Thoughts kept coming. Memories. Worries. Old arguments he never finished. Future conversations that had not even happened. It felt like a storm living inside his head. And for the first time in his life, he could hear that storm clearly. Because noise had always hidden it before. The uncomfortable truth. One evening, Daniel sat alone in his room without music. Without his phone. Without any distraction. Just silence. At first, it felt peaceful. But after a few minutes, restlessness appeared. He wanted to check messages. He wanted to open a video. He wanted to escape. That was the moment he realized something powerful. Silence does not create discomfort. Silence only reveals the discomfort that was already there. This understanding was painful, but honest. And honesty is the first step toward peace. A conversation without words. The next day at work, Daniel noticed Victor sitting in the garden during lunch break. No phone. No book. No movement. Just sitting, breathing, watching the trees move with the wind. Daniel slowly walked toward him and sat nearby. Neither of them spoke. Minutes passed. At first, Daniel felt awkward. He searched for something to say. Any sentence. Any topic. But Victor remained calm. Comfortable. Silent. And slowly, Daniel's heart rate began to slow too. For the first time, he experienced shared silence. And surprisingly, it did not feel empty. It felt peaceful. After a long quiet moment, Victor finally spoke in a soft voice. You see? Silence is not loneliness. Silence is connection, without pressure. Daniel felt something warm inside his chest. Because those words were true. Inside the hospital walls. The hospital smelled of medicine and worry. White lights. Fast footsteps. Quiet conversations filled with fear. Daniel and Sam sat outside the room. Sam's eyes were red. His hands were shaking. What if something happens to her? Sam whispered. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Old Daniel would try to give many words. Big promises. False confidence. But the new Daniel understood something deeper. Sometimes people don't need answers. They only need calm presence. So he placed his hand gently on Sam's shoulder. And stayed silent. Not empty silence. Supportive silence. After a few moments, Sam's breathing slowly became steady. No long speech was needed. Only quiet strength. Waiting. The hardest moment. Waiting is one of the loudest forms of silence. Minutes feel like hours. Thoughts become heavy. Every small sound feels important.
Daniel closed his eyes softly. Inside his heart, fear was still there. He was not emotionless.
He was not pretending to be strong.
But he was choosing something powerful.
Feeling fear, without becoming controlled by fear.
He remembered Victor's words.
Peace is not the absence of storms.
Peace is the calm center inside the storm.
So Daniel sat in that calm center, breathing slowly,
allowing silence to hold him.
The doctor's steps. Finally, the door opened. The doctor walked toward them. Every step felt slow, serious, important. Sam stood up quickly. Daniel followed. "How is she?" Sam asked, voice trembling. The doctor looked at them, then spoke gently. "She is stable now. You brought her at the right time. She will need rest, but she is safe." Safe. That single word felt like light after darkness. Sam began to cry with relief. Daniel's eyes became wet too. But inside his chest, there was also gratitude. Not only because his mother was safe, but because he had stayed calm in the storm. For the first time in his life, silence had protected him, instead of fear controlling him. A quiet realization. Later that evening, Daniel sat beside his mother's bed. She was sleeping peacefully, her breathing slow and gentle. Machines made soft rhythmic sounds in the background. Daniel watched her quietly. Childhood memories appeared in his mind. Her smile, her sacrifices, her endless care. And a deep realization touched his heart. Life is fragile. Time is limited. Noise is unnecessary. So many arguments. So many useless worries. So many loud reactions. None of them truly mattered. What mattered was this simple moment. Being present. Being calm. Being grateful. All of that was born from silence. The message without words. As Daniel held his mother's hand softly, she slowly opened her eyes. She looked at him. Tired, but warm. No long conversation happened. No emotional speech. She only whispered one quiet sentence. "You're here." That's enough. Daniel felt his heart melt. Because he finally understood. The deepest love is often silent. No noise. No performance. Just presence. Silence becomes strength. That night, walking home under the soft streetlights, Daniel noticed something new inside himself. The world outside was still the same. Cars, people, sounds, movement. But the world inside him had changed. There was space now. Breathing room. Gentle calm. Silence was no longer something strange. It had become his quiet friend. And for the first time, he felt truly strong. Not loud strong, but peaceful strong. The next lesson approaches. But life was not finished teaching him. Silence in pain is one lesson. Silence in anger is another. Silence in success is the hardest of all. Soon, Daniel would face a moment where pride would try to speak loudly. A moment where staying humble and silent would require more courage than ever before. And that moment was already on its way. Days passed after the hospital incident. But something inside Daniel had quietly changed forever. He was no longer reacting to every small problem. He was no longer speaking just to fill empty space. He had started living with a new habit. Pausing before responding. Breathing before deciding. And listening more than speaking. Silence was becoming part of him. But life has a strange way of testing growth. Just when you feel peaceful, something new appears to challenge that peace. And this time, the test did not come with pain. It came with success. The unexpected opportunity. One quiet afternoon at the office, Daniel was working on a simple report. The room was filled with soft keyboard sounds. Nothing felt special. Nothing felt dramatic. Then suddenly, his manager called his name. "Daniel, can you come to my office for a moment?" His heart moved slightly faster. Not fear. Just curiosity. He walked slowly, knocked gently, and entered the room. The manager smiled. "Sit down, Daniel. I have good news." Good news. Two small words. But they can change everything. A door opens. The manager continued speaking. "We've been watching your work for the past few months. Your focus, your calm behavior. Your ability to solve problems without drama." Daniel listened quietly. No excitement on his face. No interruption. Just attention. "So," the manager said softly, "we want to promote you. A higher position. Better salary. More responsibility." For a second, Daniel felt warmth spread through his chest. A dream. Slowly becoming real. Old Daniel would jump with excitement. Call everyone immediately. Speak loudly about success. But the new Daniel did something different. He stayed. Silent. Not cold silence. Not emotionless silence. Grateful silence. The power of a quiet response. "Thank you," Daniel finally said, gently. "I will do my best to deserve this trust." That was all. No long speech. No showing off. No unnecessary promises. The manager looked surprised, but also impressed. Because true confidence is usually quiet. And noisy confidence is often insecurity in disguise. When the world starts watching you. News of Daniel's promotion spread quickly. Co-workers came to congratulate him. Some were happy. Some were curious. Some were secretly jealous. This is the nature of success. It reveals people's real feelings. One colleague said loudly. "Wow, Daniel, you're lucky. Things just work out for you." Lucky. Such a simple word. But Daniel knew the truth. Long silent mornings. Hidden struggles. Quiet discipline. Unseen patience. Success is rarely luck. It is usually silent hard work that nobody notices. But Daniel did not argue. He did not explain. He only smiled gently. Because he had learned. You don't need to defend your journey. Silence can protect your peace. The invitation to pride. That evening, Daniel sat alone in his room. The promotion letter was on the table. Bright. Official. Important. His mind started whispering. You did it. You are better now. People will respect you more. This is the most dangerous moment of success. Not failure. But pride. Pride speaks loudly inside the heart. It tries to turn gratitude into ego. For a few minutes, Daniel felt that voice growing. But then, he remembered the hospital room. His mother's weak hand. The fragile reality of life. And suddenly, the voice of pride became smaller. He closed his eyes, took a slow breath, and returned to silence. Gratitude instead of noise. Instead of celebrating loudly, Daniel did something simple. He went to the kitchen, made 2 cups of tea, and sat beside his mother. She looked at him with soft curiosity. "What happened today?" she asked. Daniel handed her the tea and smiled gently. "I got a promotion." Her eyes filled with quiet happiness. No shouting. No dramatic reaction. Just warmth. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. In that silent room, Daniel understood something beautiful. Real success feels peaceful. Not noisy. The secret most people miss. Many people chase success because they want attention, praise, recognition, validation. But Daniel was discovering a deeper truth. Success is not about being seen. It is about becoming someone who no longer needs applause to feel worthy. And silence helps that transformation happen. Because in silence, you meet your real self. Without masks. Without noise. Without performance. A new level, a new test. Promotion was not the final lesson. It was only the beginning of a harder journey. Higher position means more pressure, more expectations, more chances to lose peace. Soon, Daniel would face conflict, criticism, and misunderstanding. Moments where speaking loudly would feel easier than staying calm. Moments where silence would require true courage. Because real mastery of silence is not in peaceful days. It is in difficult conversations. And that lesson was coming very soon. The quiet promise. Before sleeping that night, Daniel stood near the window. The city lights were shining softly. The world was still moving fast. But inside him, there was calm. He placed his hand on his heart and made a silent promise. No matter how high I rise, I will protect this peace. I will choose calm over noise. I will let silence guide my words. Because he finally understood. Speaking less, but speaking with meaning, is a rare kind of power.